Who? Yeah. Where's Stephanie at? Okay, I think we're going to begin. So I'll ask John R. if you could please come up and start with an opening prayer for us.
Dan elgusid wegusid niskam, euchid niskam, ahujul niskam. Luchinan wasog ebin, chiptuk telwisin megeded megnadel wasog lidanen. Chiptuk ignemu yegulanemu leguledesnen, nadel wasog ekik delis khadaskik, chiptuk abninen delis khadleg, mamige gamer. Delamugab niglesmi egel, abnigeskuk, lamuk tuj, ponignemu in niluna. Dilebik siktaachig, bagaiminametibni gelkin niskam abik siktuin. Elweel tiegmog nin me wensuril muktigalinen. Gesnuan kewel wenchigul goel jigladwinen. Dan delwisid wegwisid niskam euchid niskam alwajul niskam. Adliaj.
Thank you, John. So I notice there's a couple of video recorders here. I believe we're going live. We're live now, so this is a live video stream that has taken place to all our community members who are not here, and I understand there'll be just the recording will be automatically put on the website. So I'd like to begin by welcoming everyone to our community meeting. There is an agenda, and you could please take a look at it. The obvious focus of this community meeting is to focus on own source revenue. And I do realize that a number of people have questions on what is own source revenue, what is taking place in own source revenue. And certainly that is one of the things that Council wanted to do, that is to have a community meeting focusing on own source revenue. We have the various directors from managers from the various departments involved in own source revenue. We had worked with Grant Thornton, who had helped consolidate some of the figures and graphs and charts that you see within the materials. We have our auditor here, John McNeil from Grant Thornton, who is going to be going through the audit as well. So near the end, you will note that there is a bit of an update on social, and Alicia, myself, and Council will be here to just provide certain specifics on that, what is taking place, and how we sort of see things functioning as it relates to social in the future. But I would like to begin by welcoming you, all of you, to our community meeting. A number of people have pulled together with great effort to provide the materials that you are looking at within the booklets. The purpose of this is to give you a snapshot on where things are with own source revenue. Obviously, this is the first meeting, a community meeting we had on own source revenue. So what we're looking forward to is people's comments and certainly people's questions on some of the materials that you're looking at. I really hope somebody could take notes. One of the things I find very important is as questions are asked, we'll do our best to try to answer those questions. But certainly, you know, there may be questions we can answer, but I really want to take notice of those questions. So eventually, maybe sometime we can answer those and provide them to you on the website or something like that. So there's some excellent food here. I hope people had an opportunity to eat and sort of relax a bit for this community meeting. As mentioned previously, this community meeting focuses on own source revenue. And just to give you a bit of a snapshot here, I was just talking to John that basically our overall budget in terms of revenues is about $10 million, okay? And it's almost about 50-50 when I was talking to John in terms of what we get from Aboriginal affairs and what we derive from own source revenue. And it's really important to know that own source revenue plays a very key and vital role to the function and operation of our community. There are a number of individuals, dedicated individuals, people who are working in tobacco, people who work in gaming, people who work in fisheries, people who work at the gas station. It is through their efforts that profits are generated, and it allows for the provision of basic programs and services within our communities. And so I really want to recognize that and recognize their efforts, you know, in deriving this much needed income for our community, because, you know, there's a variety of programs and initiatives that we rely heavily on own source revenue. So I wanted to begin by just sort of offering those comments. So the general format is we have a number of presenters. There is a PowerPoint, and what we'll be doing is going through the various presentations. We're going to have, after those are complete, we're going to have a bit of a break. And then after that, we're going to sort of get into the audit. John is going to take us through the audit and offer some general comments. And then after that, a brief update on social will take place. And then followed by that, we'll have a Q&A session. So there are at least one mic available here, so people can certainly make use of that. If you feel you want to write your question, please provide it to either Savannah or Shailene to bring it forward. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And with that, I'll just hand it over to our first presenter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome all the community members, co-workers, chief and council. Thank you for attending. I work for the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center, and we provide one of the main own source revenues for the community. We enjoy working. All of our staff members really appreciate, and we show our gratitude through our work to provide a service for all our community members and extended areas. And when I describe a description, we are here to entertain all our patrons with all slot machines to provide a welcoming and profitable service to our community members and surrounding areas. And some of our activities and successes are, we've been opened since November of 2010. We provide a service that will employ most our community members to be able to get jobs. We will be moving to the highway, which will provide more jobs, more revenue, and a collectible training. So if anybody's ever interested in working for own source revenue, there will be monies available for training. There will be more job opportunities coming in the future. We do still take resumes for community members that are interested in working for the entertainment center, and we'll welcome anyone that is interested in working for us. Some of our activities during the recent months, 4 years that we've been open, will be 5 years in 2015 in November. And during this month, we will be having a community canteen that will be opening soon. We're hoping that in September, and we are looking for new employees to help us provide with the services that we will be offering. During the month of June, we did a lot of interior and exterior renovations to the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center. We're doing landscaping. We did inside painting. We've changed the outlook of the building to provide emergency doors there for the community. We also installed air conditioning for the customers to have a air conditioning cool environment. We have installed new chairs. We've provided new office layout for better service to provide to our customers. There are new procedures and policies that we incorporated in the business. We also offer pull tabs, and we are looking, like I mentioned before, looking to hiring new staff. And security is now provided at the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center because safety comes first. So our future plans, like I mentioned, is we will be moving to the highways. We plan to help establish and provide great hospitality. The canteen that's going to be incorporated into the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center will provide a service going to the highway for bigger and better. More revenue will be coming through the highway, and we have to prepare ourselves and all of our employees to be able to assist and provide what's needed for the future endeavors. We're trying to create job opportunities that will increase, and with lower employment shortfalls that we have now, we hope to improve training and job opportunities. And staff has been to a couple of training sessions to create that hospitality that we're looking for, and we provided advertisement this year with the radio stations and other places, and we see that with advertising, things are moving along a lot quicker. We are seeing a lot more faces. We see the revenues climbing, which is profitable for our community. And we also keep number one, safety is the number one for the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center. We do have numbers for the finance, and when you look at the wages and profits of the Buck and Cake Entertainment Center, our net profit at the end of the year in 2015 climbed from 2014 from a $5,880,000 to $893,000. So we are profitable. We do see with the expenditures of $504,000, which we subtract the expenditures, we do come out on top with $389,182. And this is one of our main own source revenues that can prevail, and we can make it better. We try our hardest, and I'd like to thank all my employees, all the community members, and all the surrounding areas for their support in helping the Buck and Cake Entertainment survive for 5 years. Thank you. A little slideshow here that I just want to kind of point out. And we kind of made it fun. We included most of our employees with a short period of time. We were hoping. But this first slide shows that our new logo, which we created, and we just love the environment. Our staff are they enjoy their jobs. They really, do their best. And I think doing our best and providing the service for us. And you can see that some of the areas that we chose, we kind of chose all of the areas, smoking room, plus our emergency doors that were installed. We're here to make it a better place for all of our community members. And we appreciate everyone coming in. But you do see the new chairs that we invested in, and we work as a team. So I hope that in the future, when we do move to the highway, this is going to be much better and much bigger. That will come all back to the community members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Okay, with that, I think next in line is Fisheries, and Lynn, maybe we'll get you to provide some comments or go through your presentation on that.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I am the fishery manager for Buckengate Fisheries, and this year we have three new staff, including myself. Megan Lafford, she's our fishery assistant. Doris Gugu, and she's our fleet supervisor. Buckengate Fishery Enterprises, we have 18 fishers employed for 2015 season. We have two new captains, Vincent Basque and Valerie Lafford. She's our first female captain Buckengate's ever had. Right now we are, our 2015 lobster and snow crab season. Our lobster, with the slow beginning, we did pretty good in lobster. There's our all our catches and our pie chart for catches for lobster and snow crab. Oh, you have to excuse me, I'm just nervous. Okay, I have. Our Buckengate Fishery, our future planning is new fishery suppliers to reduce overall costs, new maintenance and performance outcomes for maximizing revenues, proposal for the OLEX mapping system. We're doing up a proposal for a new OLEX mapping system that is a 3D chart system for each vessel, provides a combination of navigation, fishery plotting, and seafloor mapping. It'll help us in the future with figuring out where the best catch is for lobster and snow crab. And this year we made, all our catches was 844,509 is what we made. Total catches, lobster and snow crab. We spent 664,000, and our net profit was 191,699 for this year. Did you want to for the K&K?
I can add something to that under future plans. There have been some joint meetings that had taken place with the Bear River First Nation. Buckengate and Bear River are in a rather unique position in the sense that we are the only two bands that haven't signed a Marshall Livelihood Agreement or what they call an Aboriginal Fisheries Strategy Agreement, an AFS agreement that deals with food and the use of fisheries for food, social, and ceremonial purposes. So with these two bands being in this unique position, we have had joint meetings amongst ourselves and obviously with the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative. And essentially what we're looking to explore is the possibility of being a sort of starting an initiative under what is called a treaty-related measure. What that can potentially provide from these early discussions is potentially more fisheries access, the possibility on improved management over fisheries, and also considerations related to developing a food fishery within the community. So these are just preliminary thoughts, discussions that have taken place between our respective bands involving KMK, and we're looking forward to sort of pursuing these in the future.
Okay. Also, we are going to be expanding the enterprises. This year, Buckingham Fishery Enterprises has an opportunity in forestry with the Port Hawkesbury paper mill. We are currently looking for someone who is certified that can train our community members in silviculture. We have 1,000 hectares of Crown land in Franklin Manor. We will be looking for community members who are interested in practicing in this project. The project will also include harvesting firewood for the community, and this is currently in planning stages. More information will be distributed to the community as soon as it becomes available. Right now we called NSCC, but they're on summer vacation, so we've been leaving messages for them to return our phone calls, so we'll be getting on that soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lynn, for doing that. Okay, we're going to move on to the gas bar at the... Okay. Sure. How long is he going to... Okay, then. Sure.
Next on the agenda is the oyster update. We have an oyster farming project live that's active now, and it's been going on since June of this year. I just want to give you a brief history about it. Here it is. Since 2012, Buckingham Fishery Enterprise has been working diligently with an aqua specialist. His name is Fernando Salazar. He works with APC in Unweg. And in that, he's been in very good support of activating our oyster licenses. In 2012, a study was conducted by a consultant named Brian Muse, who we received a proposal funding to hire him to evaluate what supply and demand is for our oysters in the Atlantic provinces. And then after that, that study showed the demand for oyster spat. After that study, an assessment was completed down in our Walnag waters by Robin Stewart, at the time as a consultant, again hired through funding, a proposal. And that study he did was an assessment that was completed again down at Walnag, and that proved that there were many hotspots, had large count of oysters showing different life stages. And the next step now is where we're now. We just received funding back in June to begin our oyster farming project to pursue our future oyster business that we're aiming to do in the next 5 years. I'm going to continue over to Robin Stewart. He is now the instructor to our students that are on the oyster farming project that takes place down at Walnag, Summerside. Robin?
Can everybody hear me? Usually I don't need a mic, I'm loud enough, but my name is Robin Stewart, and I've been working with oysters for 45 years probably.
So it's been part of my life for a long time, and I've worked with a number of the First Nations communities, including Eskasoni and Chapel Island and Wakaba. But when I was asked a couple of years ago to help Brian Hughes look at the opportunity for getting into seed production of oysters, I assisted in that project, and we certainly identified that the number of farms that is on the increase dramatically for oyster farming in the Maritimes. New Brunswick is absolutely huge now, and it's all cultivation, it's all farmed oysters. PEI has a mixture of farmed and fish oysters. Here in Nova Scotia, I think we're just sitting in an opportunity which has yet to be realized. We have a number of harbors which can grow, and when I was shown the map of Pomcut Harbor, it got me quite excited, because I knew that the area had been closed to fishing since the 1970s, for the reason that it was closed was for agricultural runoff from cattle farms that used to exist around the harbor, which actually no longer exist in any extent. I think there's one farm that we've seen there since we came back, but the point is that actually preserved the natural state. It's probably one of the best natural oyster populations that I've seen in over 40 years. I hazard to say that it's probably somewhere between 3 and 4 million market oysters in Pomcut Harbor alone right now. There's literally oyster reefs, which is a good sign, good healthy sign. Year classes of all sorts, both broodstock, large oysters, juveniles. It's obviously shown signs of good recruitment every year. So having done that study last fall, it made me quite aware that there was a significant potential to do something here. And the first place to start seemed logically to look at using the harbor as a hatchery, a natural hatchery, because of the large broodstock number that was available. I have done a number of oyster seed production in my years in this business, and I've learned how to make it a little bit more secure in terms of collecting seed. So I put together a course which involves. Originally we had 8 students. We're down actually to 5 now, but it's been a very rewarding experience for me, and I hope it has for the students so far, because these guys have been phenomenal. They're very, very keen. They're picking up all the aspects of the training so quickly. Whether it's knot tying, and they're actually being able to use a microscope and identify oyster larvae, so you can tell when they're going to be setting. These guys are picking it up. They're actually they've learned how to digitally photograph oyster larvae to use for spat prediction methods. They've learned about oyster biology, the life cycle of the oyster, so that by looking at oysters around the shore, they can find out whether they've spawned or not, so that whether we've missed the spawning timing. So there's a number of factors that they've picked on, and I've been quite excited about both their enthusiasm and the fact that they're able to work independently, because I now can quite leave them 5 minutes. I can leave them quite comfortably and know that they can go out and operate the boat. And I got to say, this boat was obtained by Kerry here for us in New Brunswick, and it's absolutely ideal for the students from a safety point of view. It can carry a large amount of weight. It's stable. It doesn't require a lot of maintenance. Made of aluminum, and it's absolutely ideal for working in the oyster business. And if you see any farms that exist, you'll see that they all use these pontoon crafts to work with, because it's low to the water, easy to work with. So. I want to move the slides along a little bit, and we'll just. These are shots from Google Earth showing the sites. Now this is Monk's Head. You see up here. We've selected 2 areas where we've put 2 rafts each. with 4 different types of collectors in each area. And these were identified. I figured there from the stock assessment we did last year, there's very large populations in these 2 areas. So I knew there was probably good potential to collect seed there. So you can see the red line there, the mooring line, that's where the rafts are located. It's not an easy place to get into. If anybody knows Monk's Head, you have to go under a railway trestle, which is quite shallow, and you can't do it at high tide because you'd knock the top of your boat off if you did. But it's extremely good area for retaining larvae, and we've got collectors in there. We've done larval samples. We've got good results so far. It has not been, generally speaking, in the Maritimes, it has not been a good year for oysters because we haven't had a hot summer, and oysters like heat. They need at least 20 degrees to spawn. We managed to attain that about 3 weeks ago. It was actually warmer 3 weeks ago than it is today, which is odd. Usually it doesn't get cooler as the summer progresses, but that shows you the type of summer we've been having here. But we have we've definitely got good signs of larvae appearing, and we've also good sign of spat settlement on our collectors. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we have good survival between now and the fall. We'll watch as they grow. I was a little concerned about the heavy rain we had on Sunday because oysters are sensitive to fresh water, but it looks like we were able to drop the collectors down below the freshwater layer. So the guys are actually out there now, I believe, marking off. It's quite a tricky, if anybody's been in the harbour, it's quite a tricky channel to get from the site in Summerside by the church over to Monk's Head. It's quite a meandering channel and very shallow, and you really have to know where you're going. So they're presently marking that off so we can come the day when it's too foggy or too rough, they would still be able to find their way out. I think Carrie's told me about this before, that it's pretty tricky, and we already experienced the time when we brought the aluminum boat in the first time. There was a Newfoundland chap that came in a little too quickly, and I think he hit the shallows and did some damage to his boat coming in. So it's very easy to do. But our guys have displayed good navigation skills. They've displayed a good willingness. I think we've got a good key group of guys that can make this work. And girls, I should say. This is a mixed. We have male and female. Yep, Donnie Julian. We have Nico Clare, Ursula Clare, Heather Julian, and Rocket. He says don't call him Robert Marshall. Every one of these guys have been phenomenal. I'm very pleased, and I think that the opportunity is significant. I think we should be looking at securing leases in the harbour. The band should, if they can, and that'll give some legal entitlement to carrying on. And I with a population like that, I think the future looks good, and we're at the stepping stone of I think could be a significant fishery and farm in Pompket Harbour.
Thank you, John. Sorry, Robin. John's beside me. Robin's over there. Thanks, Robin. Thanks so much for the update. Okay, with that, I think we're going to move over into the gas bar and updates by Christina.
So what we're, like if everybody's seen, like at the gas bar now, we have like higher prices than what we usually do because we switched to selling gas at a higher price so that way we could see if we could get some profit. Because now the gas bar is actually working at a loss. It's the only own source revenue that works at a loss, but we've also tried to make sure that we provide like with the swipe for all our customers and that. We do have 2 full-time workers, which is myself and Christopher Sillaboy. Christopher Sillaboy's been at the gas bar since it opened, which was back in the summer of 2005. He's been there for 10 years. If that's hard to believe, that's how long we've had our gas bar. We have 2 new part-time workers, which is Tracy Bass and Michelle Reed. And we have 2 casual workers at the moment, which is Damian Johnson and Nathan Johnson. Right now, there's an extension being added to the gas bar. It's going to be used as storage, because what we're going to start inside the gas bar, as you guys all seen with the surveys, that we're going to be putting like pop and milk and chips and that type of convenience stuff in there. So, because there's always some people that want to stop in, just do one stop and then keep traveling through. We're also going to be getting tobacco, but we're going to be getting tobacco like ordered from off the reserve, but we're going to be start getting tobacco products in there as well. Also, when we do get the update for the convenience store, we're actually going to be getting filtered water. We're going to have an air service, so there'll be air pumped there, because most people are looking for air as well. There's also going to be, I think, the lottery. We might be able to get like 649 tickets and scratch tickets started there as well. We also have new policies and procedures that are helping out with the gas bar, so that way my staff will be able to do the inventory, and that way when the convenience store starts, so when we do move to the new location, if the highway development goes through, then we're going to be actually expanding the gas bar up there as well. We have a new point of sale system that's been installed, and it's actually helping us with the control the inventory, and also be able to make sure that everybody comes accountable for their money. That's all the workers. Now, we are actually going to be open 365 days a year. We're not going to be closed on Christmas. We're not going to be closed on New Year's. And I can't even think of anything else.
That's great. Thank you, Christina. We got a little video here too. Okay. Okay, this is with the addition that is going on to the gas station. That's great. While that's going on, I just want to mention that we're looking to expand the services of the gas station to get into convenience store kind of situation. We're hoping that that will boost revenues for the gas station to offset some of the deficit that we incur. But more importantly, when we think of moving over into the development on the Trans-Canada, we'll have the systems and processes in place, so hopefully there will be a smoother transition when that takes place. So thank you, Christina. I think we're going to move into tobacco now. Great.
Hi, welcome everyone. The Buckingate Tobacco Shop resides in Buckingate, Mi'kmaq Nation, and it services tobacco products to our community members only. What's new is we have recently new hires. The tobacco manager is a full-time position, myself, and they employ 2 community members. And Leanne Bernard is a tobacco clerk, and she's part-time. And she just started in May, June. And she's doing great. She's learning quick. What's new in tobacco? Recently, there's been new policy and procedures created. These policy and procedure, we have a policy and procedure manual. It's well-written policies and procedures being structured to any business, no matter what the size. Policy and procedures prepare businesses to groom less experienced staff to guarantee that the essential management positions are kept occupied. The manual is very detailed. Anyone can come in, and if they're new, they can look at this manual and they'll be able to self-teach yourself how to use our POS system and the run of the business. The development of the distribution policy, and there's been amendments made. Through communication, in the past, how this began with the distribution policy, through communication with the Buckinghamk Mi'kmaq Nation Chief and Council, Grant Thornton, Membertou and Indian Brook First Nation, their policies, their distribution policy was adopted, and through hiring a consultant, Krista Thompson, and working diligently with the council, they revised Membertou and Indian Brook's policy to fit to what our community needs are. So with that policy, there will be a notice going out in the newsletter, and I think that's tomorrow. Yeah, okay. So that all the amendments and changes about the distribution with the community distribution and the retailers, like the vendors, and surplus is all explained in the community notice that's coming out tomorrow. The few changes that were made with the distribution policy, only Buckinghamk band members are allowed to purchase tobacco, and they have to come in person now to do it. Unless, for medical reasons or an elder, then they would sign on paper a designate to come in for them. And another amendment that was done is that each community member may only purchase 1 carton and 1 tin per week, which is a total of 200 grams. That was amended for the policy just so that we have community members quota every week, and that by the end of the month we'll sell out perfectly, and it helps us with the flow of distribution for everybody. What else was changed? And then the retailers, they have their distribution policy, and they've been all informed. They have a set quota for them. We have 4 vendors. So with the 4 vendors, we set aside a total of 800 cartons and 54,000 grams, and it's distributed between the 4 of them. And they come at by the 15th of every month, they purchase it. After the 15th, it's called surplus distribution. At the end of the 15th, on that day, we will take inventory count, we'll redo inventory count, and figure out how many cartons are left and how many grams, and we're going to divide that between 55% will be saved for community members, quota, and the remainder 45% will be set aside for the vendors. And we will divide that up. That 45% will be divided up by 4 vendors, because there's 4 in the community, just so we keep flow of community members quota. And that's pretty much with the distribution, that the changes that happen in the policy. And with this, it really helps us in the shop to make things flow a lot better and positive. Where am I at now? Okay. Oh, and then we have a special allocation for ceremonial distribution. It's for traditional use in our community daily lives. Tobacco is used for ties, sweats, new moon. This allocation is available to 5 designates individuals in the community. It says at a later time, we do have 2 right now. One is our traditional elder, Carrie Prosper, and our traditional youth, Molly Peters. So those 2 right now are our designates for traditional use. So if anybody in the community that would like some, we usually would use Molly or Carrie to assure that the community member requesting for a special allocation, Carrie and Molly would approve them and understand that they are traditionalists. They will use it for ceremonial purposes or whatever their personal need is for healing. We do special allocation for Buckinghamk Powwow, which is a special request through the province of Nova Scotia. And we are set now for our powwow now. We got approved for cartons and grams. And we also do allocations for death in the community, which is 1 tin and 1 carton for the wake house and 1 tin for the sacred fire. Ceremonial distributions, I forgot to mention, is 5 tins of loose tobacco per month, which is 1,000 grams, I think it was, right? 1,000 grams. Where am I at now? Sorry. We have a new POS system that is excellent. It's a really great system. Christina and I both use it in our enterprises. It increases our accountability. It helps track our inventory. It's not perfect, but it's getting better. We're able to track inventory and distribution by community member and vendors. We track it for community members by using their band number, sorry. So we can just bring it up if anybody has question on how much they purchased already or if they're over or under, we can give you that. We can give you a printout of how much you actually purchased last month, this month. So it's better tracking, and it's to ensure that everybody's, you know, being treated fairly and nobody's exceeding their quota or, you know. And let's see. We have very good customer service with POS too. They're always on call. I just send an email and they're there. They help me with retraining, everything with the inventory and putting in new products, everything. They're great. The POS guys are great. What's new in tobacco? Sales revenues have increased by implementing these policy and procedures. The distribution policy will ensure that we will sell our complete quota every month. What else? And when we talk about revenues, for the fiscal year 2014-15, tobacco sales revenue was a total of $1.7 million. Our overall expenses was $1.5 million. That's including like community support, elder support, wages and salaries, other supports that we do within the other own source revenues, or how the community support will, you know, and administration support also. So we made a profit last year of $235,073 for last year. My goal is to increase that next year. Our next is we're hitting our marketing department sector in our tobacco shop, and we have a draft of a new shop logo. And it's being designed by Donnie Julian, our elder in the community, and this is just a draft of what it's going to look like. And we came up with a new idea last night, and I just introduced it to Donnie this morning. I was thinking of putting like maybe a silhouette in the background of a peace pipe, and how you see that little line under bucking cake, and that line will represent the smoke coming out of the peace pipe. I think that would be more added, if it's okay. It's only be draft, but that's one addition we were thinking of yesterday. So that's what was approved, and if good, that's where we're going to go. And Donnie's going to be doing it. For future, we are in need of storage, more storage. And we're looking at adding 130 square feet addition. As you can see where the little gravel pile is, that's where it's going to connect. And that will be storage for our tobacco products. And that will also make room for our next future planning, which is bringing back the canteen in support for our elders and any requests they want to do. They want to go on trips, they want to have events, they want to do cultural workshops with the youth, anything. That's what this money will be provided for. And this is coming in the fall. But we need our storage in order to make room for the canteen so we won't be overloaded in the shop. And that pretty much concludes my presentation on tobacco. I appreciate your time and listening. Thank you. Walaleo.
Thank you, Marina. You'll see on the following page, after tobacco shop, sort of like the profit and loss margin by OSR businesses, sort of broken down by department. There's also a 5-year sort of profit analysis there beside it, and a breakdown on where some of those revenues go in terms of providing basic and essential services and programs for the community. At this stage, I want to sort of give you an update on how a lot of this work came together. We knew that, you know, after the forensic audit, that we had to really sort of focus on the management of our revenues and resources. So we reached out to Grant Thornton to conduct an assessment of our own source revenue sort of departments, more specifically in tobacco and gaming. There was also some preliminary work done in the gas bar as well. So they drafted a report. We can make that available to you. We can potentially put it online for you to take a look at that document. There were a number of recommendations and findings that came through that report that were very essential and critical to safeguarding our assets. So it's one thing to have a report, but obviously you have to act on it. You have to implement it. So we reached out to Krista Thompson, to help implement that report, those reports that were generated with the under the guidance of Grant Thornton. So Krista, maybe I'll get you to talk a bit about that process.
Hi everyone, I'm Krista Thompson. I did a presentation on how Buck&Kick Mi'kmaq Nation is trying to optimize our business. Like PJ said, through a decision of Chief and Council, they had Grant Thornton provide a review in 2012-2013. They hired myself, the consultant, to implement the recommendations, write policies and procedures for each of the own source revenue organization mentioned within the asset review, and then oversee construction projects for the renovations within OSR. In the review, this is an excellent quote from Grant Thornton, Buck&Kick recognizes that issues with asset safeguarding and even just the potential suspicion of wrongdoing often becomes hot topics for public opinion in various forms of media. By addressing this risk head-on and solidifying an effective control structure, the band is positioning itself to better protect its assets and reputation. This can transform a potentially negative news story into a story of how the band is promoting responsible management of assets, which in turn can promote confidence in the band's operations and lead to increased outside interest in investing in Buck&Kick's growth. The objective of the engagement was to conduct a review of the processes relating to the safeguarding of inventory and cash assets within OSR. So they specifically looked at the tobacco shop and at the entertainment center. Grant Thornton offered recommendations and considerations for next steps, and the comments were intended to support the Buck&Kick as the band continues to build a solid base on which to support future growth. So for tobacco, the band council had to review the procedures. They had to look at the quota allocations. They had to look at all the documents and make that decision for the tobacco distribution policy. There was a segregation of duties within all own source revenue to make sure that monies are being counted with more than one person and that everything is being accounted for financially. Limiting access to cash. So in Entertainment Center, we did separate some of the duties and who does have access to the cash. Staff safety is a big concern, and that's something that we're growing, and we're hoping that we can develop more policies around safety and with our safety crew that we have. We're really looking at efficiencies on how to reduce our overall costs, how to maximize our revenues, with the creation of the convenience store, with investing in the entertainment center to bring in more clientele, and with the policies and procedures for tobacco to make sure that we sell out every month. And then building capacity. So training is a plan for all the staff within all the own source revenue so that we can build capacity and that we have trained staff ready to move when the highway development gets here. Myself, my experience is that I'm currently an MBA student at CBU. I hope to graduate in October. I have a vast experience in retail and service industry. I've worked with many First Nation communities, with various organizations, and I'm from here. So my role within the tobacco shop was collaborating with the manager, the chief and council, to do the tobacco shop policies and procedure manual, the job descriptions, and the distribution policy. Within the entertainment center, I worked with the manager and chief and council to develop the policies and procedures for the entertainment center, job descriptions, and then the renovation plan, working with everyone to see how we wanted to make changes that would really help the business. And then currently, I'm working with the gas bar, collaborating with the manager and chief and council. We're working on the policies and procedure manual. We've created job descriptions. We've updated the gas bar expansion business plan, and that's been helping us make sure that we're making sure that everything's covered for when we do open the convenience store. And then the renovation plan, overseeing that and making sure that everything gets done. So overall, Block and Mi'kmaq Nation's own source revenue has shown substantial improvement just in these last 6 months. The managers, the employees, everyone seems like they're devoted, they're ready to maximize revenues, they're ready to help us create employment, and we really will add value with excellent customer service. Everyone's sure to see substantial improvement in the operations and more to come, so thank you.
Thank you, Krista. What we're hoping to do after we finish the implementation of the reports provided by Grant Thornton is to hopefully get an evaluation done, an independent evaluation to see how we did in terms of meeting the objectives that were provided through the Grant Thornton report. And certainly Krista has played a key role in that. Following the agenda, I think we're ready for a break. So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and then after that, we'll begin with the audit presentation. Testing. Okay, great. So maybe we'll look to reconvene. Can I please get the people back up to the front, please?
So that it's growing. Like it's, yes. I shouldn't say it's growing, but it's very consistent. Yeah, the price of everything else is going up too with that. Eh? Yeah. So what you saw here, the gas now.
Okay.
You'll see the reduction of the money was stopped.
Okay.
So the gas bar probably is consistent with the loss around. Just, I mean, that's the kind of things you're working on. You put the canteen on the highway.
Okay, maybe we'll proceed if I can get people to please grab their seats. And again, those at the front table here, could you please make your way back? Thank you. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Okay, I hope everyone had a good break. As we follow in our agenda, we tend to have our auditor, Grant Thornton, and John McNeil, who is a partner there in Sydney, within Grant Thornton. He's our auditor, and at this stage in our presentation, we're going to let John go through some of the financial statements. Okay, John, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I didn't get my handout into the package with everybody else, so there is a separate handout that says consolidated financial statements that was handed around. So that's what I'll be working from. So again, thank you for giving us the, that's it. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to look after the audit. Very pleased to be here today, and I think a meeting like this is a really important part of your overall governance structure. I'm going to go through things fairly quickly. I don't have the full financial statement here. The full financial statement is about 50 pages. That will be posted online, but if there's anybody not able to get a copy online, we can make arrangements to get that to you. What I have is, I think, some summary as well as kind of the key pages that I see. So our role as auditor is to take your financial statement and put an opinion on them as to whether we think they're in accordance. Oh, no,
We're good.
That's
thanks.
great, thank you. Yeah, our role is to put an opinion on them as to whether or not the statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards. And the standards you follow are the public sector accounting standards, which are the same as every government in Canada. So that would be provincial, municipal, federal governments, other First Nations. The statement that you have that we go through is a consolidated statement, which means that it's the consolidation of everything that is under the control of the Communities Council. So any businesses you run, the own source revenue businesses, the different divisions, are all combined in here. So there would be separate statements done for each business, but this, for a community presentation, this is the correct statement to do because it combines everything so you get a full picture of all the assets and liabilities. So just in terms of what we've done as an auditor is we've put an unqualified audit opinion on this report, which really means that we have not found any errors in the statements. They're in accordance with standards, and everything that we've looked for in doing our work we've been giving access to. So the couple of things I wanted to do today were first just to go through the audit. I'll do that fairly quickly. I wanted to talk about the financial position, the trends, where things are going, and then look at the overall control structure, kind of tie into some of the things that were talked about earlier. And what you'll see is you'll clearly see in the financial statement the split between your own source revenues and the government sources of revenues. And really, if anybody has questions when I'm going through this, I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, just because of the length of detail. But please stop me and ask any questions. I love questions. It's a great way just to make sure that everybody knows that, you know, if there's anything in there you're not quite understanding or we're going too quick, just stop me. So if you turn through to the page, it's numbered page 4 just because it's pulled out of the financial statement. It's your consolidated statement of operations. And that shows all of your revenue, all of your expenses, and then it gives you your net surplus for the year. What you would have made in net income, surplus, people put different titles on it. So just in terms of a real overview look, what you'll see is your revenue's up, your revenues exceeded budget, and they are up, very consistent with where you were in the previous year. Your expenses are in line with your revenues, and your expenses are actually reduced from where you were last year. So your revenues are up, your expenses are down, and you've consistently year over year produced a surplus from your operations. So that's obviously the result you want. If you look at the revenue, the sources of revenue, you'll see education, social services, capital, operations, health, so on down the side. Those would be your government sources of revenue, so that's the government revenue that comes in. And then you'd see your own source revenues towards the bottom. You'd say gaming, tobacco, fisheries, gas bar, VLT. Just to give you, if you're looking, because we're talking about own source revenues today, to give you an idea where they are. The statement is very consistent from year to year. Some of the things that might stand out for you that I just mentioned is that if you looked at economic development and native employment, there's a significant decline there, and that was just a one-time program that was run SPF through Service Canada that had run over a couple of years. So there's a full year of that programming last year, but only a half year, just the completion of the program this year. So you'd see a change there, and you'd see the offsetting change in the expense side of that program. Some of the other areas, you'd see an increase in social services spending, and that was offset by revenue because of the negotiation of the agreement with AANDC. So that would have covered off. The other expense that I wanted to point to is just depreciation. It's the last expense. And depreciation is just a percentage of your assets. So if you built this building, it gets allocated over a number of years. So we separate that because that's really not a cash expense. At no point did you pay out that money. It's just an allocation of your assets. So what that gives you is a net surplus of $561,000, which is a very solid surplus for the size of the community. And within your budget, you had budgeted for a $110,000 surplus, and you're ending up with a $561,000 surplus. To me, that's very, very positive, and really helps with your stability in terms of preparing for your investment in own source revenue generating activities, the things you want to do in the future. So that's the statement of operations, which is everything that would have happened over the last 12 months up until March 31st. So that's the operating activity. The next page is your consolidated statement of financial position. And what this is a snapshot at March 31st of all your assets and liabilities at that point. Now, how they're sorted is financial assets are things that you can immediately turn into cash. So that's your cash that's in your bank, your receivables that you expect to come in short time. It's the things, your inventory that you're going to sell at the store or at the gas station. That's your immediate cash resources. So you'd see that your cash resources, your financial assets, grew from $889,000 to almost $1.4 million. So again, you're going to see a trend as I go through this. Everything is pretty positive this year. You'll see that the fact that your financial assets are growing is very positive. Your financial liabilities are your debts, the things that you're actually going to pay off. So that's everything from your trade payables, the people you owe money to on a day-to-day basis. It would be program funding that might have been received in advance as your deferred revenue. And it's your long-term debt, which is primarily housing mortgages. There could be some other debt in there, but it's primarily your housing mortgages. So what you look at is your total liabilities are $3.9 million. And that's, again, it's positive that that's a decrease from where you would have been in liabilities last year. And I'm saying it's positive. It's a relatively small decrease, but the fact that it's decreasing is very positive because you're constantly building new houses, adding assets, doing those things while keeping your debt at a very consistent level. So that's very positive. So your net financial liabilities is the next line, and that's probably the key line to look at on this statement would be, that's your liabilities less your cash. it would have declined from 3.1 million last year to 2.5 million. So there's about a $600,000 decrease in your net financial liabilities. And that's, again, very positive, and I think puts you in a very stable position going forward. And then you'd look at your financial assets, or sorry, your non-financial assets, which are primarily your fixed assets. So that's everything that would be your roads, your buildings, your water system, houses, all of those things. They look like they're declining from 8.8 million to 8.7. Very, very minimal decline. But you're depreciating that each year, so you really what that means is you've depreciated them, you've taken 500,000 as a charge against those, but then you've also rebuilt and put 500,000 of new assets in, which this year were primarily housing. So what you'd see is your accumulated surplus for the community increased from about 5.8 million, you'll see at 5.794 last year, to 6.356. So your overall surplus for the community increased by about 600,000. So again, a couple of things I take from that is it is very positive. You're seeing your cash resources are strong, your debt is going down, and as I say, since the meeting's about your own source activities, what I think is really key here is that gives you the stability to move forward and invest in projects that are going to provide greater revenue sources in the future. So that's the snapshot of where things are right now. The next statement is your consolidated statement of cash flows. And what this statement is basically shows you what you spent, how much cash you earned, and then what you spent it on during the year. I'm not going to go through it in as much detail, but what it shows is that you've had a surplus of 561,000. You've had depreciation that was 551,000. So that means you've generated 1.1 million in cash during the year. So then you'd look and say, what did we spend that on? The first part of that would be things like receivables would mean that's just cash that hasn't actually come in yet, would be owed to you from AANDC. But the biggest thing you've spent your cash on as you go down is you've repaid your long-term debt by 200,000. So you've made debt payments. And then you purchased property and equipment of 504,000. And again, this year that purchase is primarily housing. There might be computers or other things in there, but the biggest piece of that is housing. So what it shows you is that you started the year with 171,000 in cash. You've increased your cash by 171,000. You had 394,000 in the bank at the beginning of the year, so at the end of the year you have $565,000 in cash. And again, that's all. I have no other comments on that. It's all very positive. So that's kind of the overview of the audit. The full statement when it goes online, or if you get a copy, we'll have it broken down. You'll see the individual departments in a little more detail. But I think that's beyond what I'd like to go through today, especially given that it's 28 degrees outside. So then the next thing I wanted to do, if I'm looking at statements as an accountant, I really think it's important to look at more than 1 year. I really like looking at the couple of things I like is to look at a trend, look to see what's happening over a long period of time. Because you can have ups and downs in any 1 year, but if you're really doing a good job, it's over time you see that build. And I think that would be the same of just about anything you'd look at. It's about the momentum. So what I've done is, and I apologize if this is difficult to follow, but what I've done is taken your surplus numbers from 2010 and taken them forward right up to 2015. So 2015 is what's closest to debts and being a stronger position. So one thing as an accountant, we really don't like surprises. Like we like if you set a budget that you're sticking to it and you kind of come up with the results like that. So I like to see that trend that you're budgeting for a surplus position and you're going in that direction. So to me, that's a very strong measurement of financial health. The other thing that I put on this page, and these are just a few things I picked out on my own that when I'm looking at statements or assessing financial health, I think are extremely important. And this next ratio that's calculated, your current ratio, is one that's looked at by AANDC very carefully when they assess the financial health of a community. So what it is, it's your immediate cash. Again, it's the things that you have, either cash in the bank, your receivables that are going to come in. If somebody owes you money, it's the inventory in the store, the things that you know are your immediate cash. And it's no different for, if I was assessing my own financial position, I'd say, okay, what do I have in the bank? And then you'd look immediately at what are the things I have to pay immediately. What are the things in the next year that I have to pay out? And that would be your payables, which are just trade. That could be central supplies, it could be anything. It's just a mix of all those types of things are your payables. So what you see is you have current assets of 1.482 and then current liabilities of 1.247. So it means you have more assets than liabilities that are going to come due in the next year of about $234,000. That's extremely positive. There's very few communities that could point to that number being positive. Very few, even businesses, organizations. What that means is that there's lots of stability. It means that you have the cash in the bank to cover your debt, to cover your bills in the coming year. So what that works out to is a ratio of 1.19. I hope I'm not getting too technical, but if anybody has questions, but that gives you a ratio of 1.19. What you'd end up with is the target for that would be 1.1. So you're actually a little stronger than the target would be. But what's really interesting is the trend that you would see is that if you go back to 2010, you had a negative 1.5 million, and then a negative 1.6 million, and negative 1.3 million, negative 5.5, then it went to a negative 297, then a positive 234. So you've been consistently over that period of time increasing your assets, increasing your cash balance, at the same time paying down your payables, getting rid of the trade creditors, the immediate things you owe. So that's a perfect picture of stability that we want to see that increasing to the point where you have better asset position than liabilities. And probably one of the bigger numbers in that would be your payables, which again is just, it could be anything. It's the things you'd pay on a day-to-day basis, gas for the trucks, central supplies, anything. A few years ago, that was at, if you looked at 2012, it was at almost $2.4 million. And today it's at $1 million. That gives you a lot more flexibility, be able to pay your creditors on time, give stability to the community, and that's one of the key ratios, whether we're looking at governments or businesses, that we want to see, and I see that as extremely positive. So then the next page I put together, again, I really like looking at trends of where businesses are going, like see the change from year over year. So what I did was take the revenues from because we're focused on own source revenues, I took the revenues from each of your businesses, so fisheries, gas bar, tobacco, VLT, your own source revenue generators. And then I took the expenses down below, so you'll see the expenses for each business, to then give you what the net income is for each business. Now, I'm sorry, I realized when I did this, I did my trending the opposite direction. So in this case, 2011 is closest over to the left, and the numbers go the other way. But again, and just if you're comparing this to some of the other information you saw, the audit statements, I'm showing the VLTs at their gross wagers, which gives you an idea of the activity going into the machine, so the revenue might look a little higher. I took out depreciation because it's not cash, and I took out the community contributions because I didn't think it's fair to show a decrease in one of the businesses just because they put money through to another organization or put money into the community. So it's kind of an adjusted net income, but what you'll see is on a net income loss basis, you're going from 346 in 2011 to 944,000 in 2015. So that's on a net income basis. Revenue is important, but really what you spend is your net income. So what you're seeing there is your own source revenue businesses are now generating $944,000 to put into the community. And if you did go back to the audit, you'd see how important that is, because many of the programs that you're operating as a community really are no longer fully funded by government. So you need to have to make sure that we're strong as a community. You need to have that own source revenue being generated. So again, I see the revenue increasing, the bottom line, the net income you're making on those businesses staying steady, and it gives you, if you want to dig into this at some point a little bit more, you'd kind of see the income from each businesses, each business. And I think it gives you some comfort in the strategies that you're working on as a community. In terms of fishing, you'll see go up and down a little bit because of pricing, so it does make sense that in fishing you'd be looking at other species, you'd be looking at oysters, you'd be looking at other license agreements, you'd be doing those things to try to stabilize that source. The gas bar and tobacco in particular, you know, they're probably at the size they're going to be right now for the size of the community, so, you know, you're working on controls and improving those procedures and more accountability around those businesses to make sure that those revenue streams are protected. And then the VLT, which is one that you've seen growth over the years. What you heard in your presentation is that, you know, you're continuing to make changes to facilities, make sure the staff are trained and you're following procedures so that you continue to protect and grow that revenue stream. And, you know, you get an idea of the potential that's there as you look at the expansion of the operations around the highway and some of the other things that you're looking at as a community. So, I think this schedule really shows where you've come through the years, but also how important your own source revenues are to you and how important it is that you continue to invest. So just a few comments I had kind of maybe summing up some of that is, I guess I'm very pleased to see I'm coming from an auditor's perspective, I'm very pleased to see the investment you're making in the controls around your businesses. I think that's key. I'm all about having a stable foundation to then build and grow your businesses. So the two things would be to have that good financial position that you have, as well as then having a good control structure, policies and procedures in place. One of the things we do through our audit process is we produce a management letter which talks about the control findings and the things we would like to see you fix in your control structure. And again, I'm not going to go through that today, but what we've seen in those letters is a real progression. Over the years, you've been implementing different points. You've invested heavily in your finance team this year, and the finance team are doing much more now. We saw that in the audit process, but you're investing in those controls, policies, and procedures. So what we're seeing now this year, our letter would be, you know, much shorter than it was in previous years because a lot of the points we would have had that would like to see you improve have been dealt with over the years. So what we're seeing is overall, my comments would be, you've got a strong cash position or a strong equity position, so there's a stable base to build on. You're building your controls in all your businesses, which again is I'm trying to think of a good word to use, essential to really the success of your future businesses. Because if you go in and invest in a new business, you've got to go in having those controls in place so that nothing gets out of control as you're investing and growing. And so just those are my comments. I think you've really built over the last few years a solid foundation to expand your own source revenues. So thank you. And really at this, I'd like to really thank the group in the finance office because the audit flowed very smoothly this year. I'm very pleased that we're here at this early date presenting it, and everything went extremely well because they had worked hard in bringing all this together this year. So thank you. And
thank you, John. At this stage, if Alicia, you're available, one of the areas that we briefly want to talk about is social. And the reason why we want to get into this subject matter is it's a priority for the band. As many of you may or may not know, there is quite a bit of movement as it relates to social, namely the federal government's quest to get provincial welfare rates apply on reserve. That has been fought by the political leadership within the Atlantic, and certainly, you know, our leadership, our council is against it. We're against, you know, the unilateral imposition of provincial welfare rates within our community, along with many other First Nation communities in the Atlantic. So on that, we are certainly united. Within your materials, you're going to see some documentation that I just want to draw your attention to. This exists as the latest correspondence that relates to social. So you'll see after the first page the latest letter from Aboriginal Affairs. Essentially, it indicates their position that they want to implement provincial welfare rates within the community by the beginning of the fiscal year. Following that, you'll see a very recent letter. It's draft because it was just finalized yesterday, late. And that relates to some recent changes being made to the Children and Family Services Act, which is a provincial act that manages the care and protection and welfare of children within the province, including Mi'kmaq children. Mi'kmaq Family and Children Services is the relevant agency that is responsible for maintaining this act on reserve. And the general thrust of what is going on through this amendment of the Children and Family Services Act is the government is looking to put forward a number of very key and critical amendments to that act that will have, if those go through, it will have significant impact within our communities. Essentially, what will take place is there will be more adoptions taking place of Aboriginal children. Our numbers, there's a higher representation of Aboriginal children involved compared to our population. And so we should be quite concerned about this because after all, it is our children that we're talking about. So when I look at some of the movement taking place on social, and when I look at some of the movement taking place as it relates to the care and welfare of our children, I get quite concerned. There is a reason why we wanted to include social in here because I believe there's a direct link between the revenues generated from own source revenue and some of the realities we're going to be facing as it relates to social. There have been a number of discussions that have been taking place amongst the chiefs within the Atlantic and more specifically as an assembly within Nova Scotia. There have been certainly discussions amongst council and certainly within staff. We have a social committee that has been developed within the community. And we also have struck a interdepartmental committee, various departments coming together, thinking creatively on how we're going to sort of address certain issues related to social. So, this is some of the information we wanted to bring to your attention. The following document is the latest response to the first letter in there from Aboriginal Affairs. And it essentially says to hold off advising our social development assistants to not participate within the suggested process that is being put forward by Aboriginal Affairs until such time the Assembly has an opportunity to discuss it. So you'll see information in that regard. Also included within the materials is some general information that was provided by the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative. It's under the heading What You Need to Know, and it just goes through some basic questions as it relates to social. The general thrust of it is we're waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court of Canada, which is the highest court in this country, to determine whether or not they will be willing to hear our appeal. As you may or may not know, we had lost at the most recent decision within the Federal Court of Appeal. We won at trial level and we lost at the appeal level, so the only other option for us is the Supreme Court of Canada. The Supreme Court just doesn't hear any case. What people have to do is they apply for leave to the Supreme Court, and it's largely up to the Supreme Court on whether or not they're going to hear this appeal. We haven't heard yet, so we're sort of in this situation of determining which way we need to go. It's quite clear that we're looking to find a middle path. We're not, and we don't agree with the application of provincial welfare rates on reserve, period. The Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative and other Aboriginal organizations are contesting that through the venue of the courts. But what we're looking at ourselves is to find that middle road. What is that middle road within our community by which we can sort of start thinking more creatively about social? What is that middle road where we can sort of have discussions, you know, and come up with innovative solutions to help people address the day-to-day issues as it relates to social? What are some of the training initiatives that we can work on or think about? What are some of the ideas that exist from clients who are currently on social? Things like that that we're looking to do and develop within the near future, because this is a significant issue. It's sought by the federal government again to be implemented. They're looking to have a smooth transition by the beginning of this fiscal year. So hopefully what I anticipate in the near future, if we're not successful at the Supreme Court, in any event, we are going to come up with our own type of policy, something that provides basic help and assistance to community members who are on social. And a lot of that support is going to be provided by own source revenue. So we thought it would be good to have a piece on social attached to own source revenue as well. There are some scenarios that I just wanted membership to have a rough idea on some of the potential scenarios that can emerge when you look at the existing welfare regime that we administer through a policy of the federal government through Aboriginal Affairs, and what potentially can emerge through the application of provincial welfare rates on reserve. So I'll look to Alicia if you want to just comment on that briefly.
Okay, there, sorry. Oh, God. Just regards to the budget sheets, what we basically wanted to show you was two scenarios with the same individual, Miss Gibson. We gave her a name, Debbie Gibson. I went way back in the day. If you take a look at the back page first, because it was kind of photocopied in reverse, the back page shows she's on household budget. She has 4 children. So, with that said, her biweekly budget would be $372.24, and of course, with provincial rates, that would be times 2. Now, if we implement some of the changes, if you flip back to the first page, we remove the children from the budgets because, according to the province, you should be using your child tax benefit and chargeable income on a welfare budget. So you would drop down to $128.10 to care for your family and your kids in your household. This is just one small scenario. This doesn't even touch on heat and lights, which is a major factor, which is why Chief and Council really, are strongly pushing for, OSR to be our helping hand. We hope it will help. I hope it doesn't come to this. Like he said, we're all against it, but at the same time, we always have to be prepared. So it may look and seem like we're pushing for things to go ahead, but we just want to be ready, because at the end of the day, who's going to be there for us when it comes down to grind and it happens. At least we can say we're ready and we're prepared, and we want to have everybody else prepared, which is why we give so much information. Like, I'm constantly putting out, every time I get a flyer or a notice from KMK, I'm putting it out to the community. I give it out with checks. I want everybody to be aware of exactly what is going down and how important it is for everybody, not just me, not just council, but it's also up to each individual on social assistance to take the steps to try and help us help you. Because at the end of the day, it's you that's going to suffer. Not that we want you to, but we want you to be able to be prepared, budget yourself, and know your limits. That we're not always going to be here to run to anymore the way you do now, as far as purchase orders and special needs. There are major caps on those things as far as provincial rates go, and we're going to have to mirror them. And it's not going to be pretty. I don't want to see it happen, nor do council. But like I said, we want to be ready. So we're just here to help you. It may seem like we're complying, but we're really not. And I just want everybody to, like, really, I want to stress that we're not complying, but we're just taking the steps to be ready. That's it.
Thank you for that, Alicia. Just further to that, our next community meeting that we're anticipating will be in October. And that will focus on, a big part of that will be focused on social. We had a number of meetings, both with government in the early days, and then internal meetings with various staff members as well, getting their ideas. This idea of coordinating various departmental programs to create the most efficiencies as it relates to providing a good rounded service for membership, and including people on social. We have reached out to academic institutions, St. FX, Dr. Jane McMillan, Fred Ween has also helped us. We will be developing a survey where we're looking to get basic information from community members, on ideas or practices, that they think would be helpful. It's really important, I believe, to get the ideas and perspectives from our membership, and more specifically people who are on social, to find out what some of the challenges are, to find out what are some of the solutions that they believe can sort of make life better for this community, and to develop a plan that sort of meets our own unique and specific needs. There is no magic solution out there. We can't take a model developed in some other community and plop it down in this community. We're a unique and special community, and we have to develop our own unique and special approaches to deal with this particular situation. So this is some of the stuff that is going to be taking place within the near future. In October, we'll have an extensive amount of dialogue on social. And what we hope through that exercise is to really get, a good idea from what people think about, generally how we should move forward in social in light of some of these more recent changes. So we just wanted to flag that for your information. So with that, this is the part I look forward to. It's the opportunity for people to step forward and provide any comments or questions or ideas. Any question is a good question. We're here. It's not to say that we have all the answers, but we have various people around this table and within the audience that could potentially answer any of the questions you have. So by all means, come forward, and this is a live video stream, so there may be even questions out there in cyber world where people have questions about some of the information that you just have heard. So we're going to open up the floor for any questions. Any questions? Hi there.
This is a couple of questions. Couple of questions that I got from other people too. The first one is, what is going on with the surrender vote? We're making future establishments and plans and moving houses without actually having a vote so far.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's a bit of concern over the movement of houses without the votes taking place?
And the future planning of establishments, like moving the gas bar to the new highway and stuff, without having a surrender vote so far.
With that, what was that last part?
Without doing the surrender vote.
Okay. There are currently two things that are really holding up the surrender vote, and they relate to surveys. And once you get two surveyors together, especially one from a federal government and one from a provincial government, and interesting things happen. So there's an issue related to the roundabout, and there's even an issue related to some old easements regarding this road that goes up across the Trans-Canada. So that kind of information is needed in order to get resolved, in order to sort of get into an agreement, to finalize the agreement where the three parties sign off, ourselves, the federal and provincial government. And you're right, in order to really affect, this agreement, it is subject to a surrender vote. And that is sort of administered by Aboriginal Affairs, and it's a rather key and critical date. What we're looking at is, what makes this unique is there's a number of houses that have to be moved in order to facilitate things. Given the time of year and given the condition of the houses, we have met with various people who move houses. We've looked at the costs associated with situating these houses. We looked at the need for housing generally, and what was decided was, rather than waiting, for the surrender vote, we have the revenues now. Why don't we just proceed and start moving some of these houses and accommodating, those people who are in need of, moving elsewhere, but also creating additional housing for clients that need housing generally. So we have the revenues. It's one of those things that is going to make good financial sense to us, because we ran the numbers, and it's better to move a house than to, build a new house. So we have those revenues, and so when we get to the situation of hopefully a successful surrender vote related to the highway, then we don't have to rush in order to move those houses. So we're being proactive in that regard.
Optimistic.
Proactive and optimistic, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Another one that I got was, why do we need extra storage when we sell out of our cigarettes? Okay.
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, and I know that was most recently talked with Marina there yesterday, or quite soon, within a couple days, but it's about storage, Marina, at the tobacco shop.
I'm sorry, I was talking about oysters.
Why? why do we need storage at the
Why do
tobacco?
we need extra storage when we sell out of cigarettes?
Well, when you come in the shop, all you see are boxes. We have no room. Even when we bring in the delivery guy, we have to physically move those boxes out of the way. So when we get our delivery, we have room even for our delivery. We can just take it and go in the back and just start storing it. The idea of having the storage is for vendors and community. So the vendors can pre-order their quota ahead and we can just store it in there instead of going off the shelves. We want to keep it separate. And that's basically my main goal for storage is so we can have on stock and have separate between community and vendors.
Okay. Was the signage for tobacco on the website, and why was it not offered as a contest on the website? And that means, to no offense to anybody, but that goes towards the new sign you guys are constructing?
We went with Donnie because he was the original designer of the first sign. And council, when I showed the draft to council this week, they approved it. They liked just the way it was and just add in the color, and the colors will be in appropriate positions.
Okay.
But it's just new branding. It's all new branding, and it was based on how chief and council wanted to deliver it.
What about the youth bills, and why is it only elders?
That was just directed by chief and council, and it's only new. It's not carved in stone. I think if youth want to engage in that, bring it. Bring it. Voice yourself with that. You're right. Yeah. Good point.
Okay. Nothing else going to be added on that one?
So that's specific to the canteen within tobacco going to elders for St. Anne's and things like that. I think it's a great idea to maybe potentially extend that into youth initiatives as well.
Yeah, at least then, because we know that the community does put in money into youth activities, at least then you could show that you're putting money into the youth activities too.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. All right. Why is the cost of wages up in fisheries? They are only seasonal, and what about our feed of crab? We get a feed of lobster, but we do not get a feed of crab.
I think people got a feed of crab at St. Anne's, you know.
Yeah, but I think what they meant was that we do not get the same feed as we do as when we get lobsters delivered to our house. We don't get crab delivered to our house, and I guess that was the question.
Okay, then. Did we ever deliver crab to houses?
I guess the question is why not then?
Why not? I mean, it's something we can take into consideration on delivering crab to houses. Potentially that could be an element of a food fishery as well. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea, you know, something to look forward anyway to.
Okay, I have a lot.
Sure, keep going.
Okay, for social programming, how is this going to impact income earners? If we are aiming towards provincial guidelines, is that going to make us taxpayers as well?
I think when you're looking at these advancements within social, it's basically policy driven. You know, what I mean by that, it's going to be administered through a shift in policy from the federal government to basically mirror the provincial rates within the province. So if you're in New Brunswick, those Mi'kmaq people or Maliseet people would have rates mirrored within New Brunswick. But when you're looking at tax exemption, that is a right that we have that is recognized through the Indian Act. So it wouldn't impact people losing their exemption from income tax. So there's no relationship, in my opinion, to that regard.
So just a no, basically?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the letter to the council, how soon are we transitioning? Does this mean we will be expecting cuts before Christmas or after? And what steps is the council making to handle the blow?
Okay. Do you mean cuts with respect to social?
I mean the letter that was on page...
Okay. The July 30th letter?
Yeah.
Okay. what you're going to see within the letter, it's Aboriginal Affairs, you know, this is their position, which we don't agree with. And I know a number of bands don't agree with it as well. But nonetheless, it's their position that they want a smooth transition to implement, you know, provincial welfare rates, essentially, by the beginning of the fiscal year. So part of that letter included a very detailed questionnaire where they were trying to gather basic and fundamental information related to how we administer a social program. But it's fair to say that it's going to, according to their opinion, sort of roll out and be administered at the beginning of next fiscal year, which doesn't necessarily mean, and I don't think it means, that there's going to be cuts prior to that date. Okay?
But are we going to be, what steps is the council making to handle this?
Okay, there have been a number of discussions that have taken place, both within the social committee, also within an interdepartmental committee. It's called, I believe, the Social Working Group. We met with academics in terms of developing an approach. Some of the things that we looked and had discussions on are things like coming up with our own intake forms, the development of a database, finalizing the interview questionnaire, and what I mentioned about having a general community meeting on social in October. So we're developing a plan as we go along, which we hope to bring forward at our community meeting in October.
Okay, and I just have one more, I think. Are the community members able to receive Christmas loans? If not, are we only receiving the $250 again?
Okay, that $250 is, as I understand it, is something that wasn't available previously. What we wanted to do through that contribution was to give something back to community, not in the form of a loan, but in the form, I believe we call it a gift. You know, so it's a new thing. Community members, both on and off, getting that sort of contribution. There have been funds being put in trust for members under 18. So there's also that element as well. But more specifically, your question, say it again.
Are we going to be able to take out loans this year?
Yes, the loan system will still apply, but what we're hoping to do is, as we get more successful, and John went through some of the projections, we're hoping to bump that up, you know, from 250 to maybe higher and higher. I can't make any promises right now, but hopefully it will get to a level where people don't have to take out a loan, that, you know, given the state we're in, the financial state of affairs we're in, that we're able to give, you know, a gift outright, you know, so people don't have to pay it back, kind of thing.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually did have one more.
Sure.
What about a church on the community, and will you guys be including that in your future plans?
Okay, that's a very good question. I kind of like the church we have in Walneg. One of the things that we really have to look at within the community is the existing band office. If there was a building that we really needed to think about, that sort of comes to mind. Our band office is an old building. I mean, I love the old building, but we should start thinking about trying to get a fund together to try to replace that building. So it's a matter of priorities, and I'm not sure where a church fits within the priorities over other things that we need to do. I mean, this gym needs some major renovations as well. So there's tough decisions that we're going to have to make on what are the priorities and where we're going to put those funds.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name is Charlene Pictou. I actually believe that since this election has gone by and almost on the second year, I find we we had profit as a community, as the whole community, instead of individually. I think PJ and the council are doing an awesome job. This is the first election that I found that there's been accountability, honesty, trustworthy, everything that we've been missing for years and years and years. And I want to say, as a band member, we always had to pay for deficit, which we have not developed as band members. It's the people that are put in place, and as our chief and council, that makes the deficit. And I've been saying this the last 2 band meetings that we had. Why do we have to keep paying? This here, the financial statement, tells us today that finally we are above deficit. And I hope to God that we keep going, because it's our children. If we don't start paying attention to what's happening, our children are going to suffer in the next 5 to 10 years. I also want to state that it's a question to Chief and Council. When you make a decision, do you make a decision as a forum, as a group? When like, just say for an example, if you're deciding on something, and when the final decision comes out, is it as a whole group, as a forum, or is it just so many individuals making that decision?
Our decisions are typically takes place within council, and there's a quorum, a number that we need to have a duly convened meeting, and that's 4. And as those decisions come about, they're voted on by council, and it's majority go kind of thing, majority win. But strangely enough, for the most part, there's been a lot of consensus amongst council, so those decisions are reached at as a group kind of thing.
That's the answer I'm looking for, but there's a glitch. There's a glitch in your chief and council, because what's happening, and I don't understand why it keeps happening, and I don't know if it's because the elections is coming, but you hear to the community that there's a decision making, and then you also hear the negative side of it, and it says, well, only this one didn't agree, this one said yes, that one said no. I don't understand. If it's made out of the whole, why do other council keep chirping to other people's ears and saying, well, I didn't decide that, she decided that, or he decided that? That has to stop. We are going into the 2016 year of election. I hope this community at some point will realize, whether you have a like or dislike of whoever's in for chief and council, just look at what they're doing, not on the chirping that people are doing in other people's ears. Because it's all about the negativity, the lies, whatever you want to call it. This statement tells it all. We had made a profit. We are paying deficit. So I wish people would stop with the lies, the negativity. I think that PJ Prosper, as chief, with their council, is doing an excellent job. And let them do their job, and let's stop all of the animosity and all about the, I'm going to call it pettiness, because it always goes back to, well, you didn't tell us, we didn't tell us. Look how many people are in this audience. The people that are not here, please give the information out, because black and white doesn't lie. Word of mouth lies, but not black and white. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Again, any questions? No question is a bad question. We'll try our best to address them as they come about.
Good afternoon, Council, Chief, members of the audience. My name is George Julian. The first question I have is, so in on own source revenue, have you had any discussions with the federal government on own source revenue, or like for with INAC on own source revenue and their plans in regards to own source revenue?
I'm having a hard time. Sorry.
Okay,
but
so it's own source revenue.
did you catch that? Did anyone catch that? Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just come. Yeah. 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 Okay, that's a very good question. The question is, has there been any discussions with Aboriginal Affairs, between leadership and Aboriginal Affairs on own source revenue? And basically, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any detailed discussions with them on own source revenue, but it is a requirement of our audit to include own source revenue. So I don't know of anything further in that regard. Do you know, John? Or no? And it's not the case with the auditor as well. So.
By the way, that was a very good campaign speech there, Sean. But anyways, in regards to own source revenue, there's 815,000 generated this year in own source revenue, from what I figure from the profits that we've made from gaming, fisheries, and tobacco. So will there be a breakdown of that expenditure of the 815,000 in profit that will be made available to the community members?
Okay. If I caught that right, you went through some figures and you're saying the profits that we have, the surplus, can that maybe be made to community members?
Yeah, I made available as to the expenditures on that 815,000.
Yeah, and will that be made to community members?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things we're going to do soon, because we just got our audit finalized, is it gives us a really good picture of our current financial position. So once we look at our current financial position, then we're going to have to start looking at some of the priorities in terms of where we need to have some expenditures. And from that, try to come out with a plan to move forward. I'm sort of a little leery on getting into big ticket expenditures until such time as we really get a fairly good grip on the social issue. I mean, that is something that I really want to stress, in that we have to figure out a way to provide more for community members who, are on social in light of some of these potential, changes coming down.
Okay. The other question I have is on the tobacco and the tobacco policy. In regards to community members not being able to have access to tobacco on the last 2 weeks of every month. So I think it's, from what I understand, it's been the last 3 months in a row that cigarettes have been depleted, and community members are having to travel to Pictou Landing, having to go to Monastery to get tobacco products, and they're paying $17 a pack for a pack of cigarettes. That's a concern, and I'm just wondering if you're going to guarantee that there is enough cigarettes available to band members through this policy at somehow, because right now it's failing as it goes to providing access to cigarettes for band members.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk in the community around that issue, and there shouldn't be, the band members shouldn't have to suffer the lack of cigarettes be made available into the community. That's a big concern out there, and
okay, I can sort of speak to that. And you're right that particularly in the last 2 months, what we've been noticing, because Krista mentioned and Marina mentioned that we really worked hard on getting a tobacco distribution policy. We worked hard on getting policies and procedures in place. But what we noticed was, when you get the policy, people are going to, utilize that policy to their fullest advantage, and rightfully so. But what was happening, what created the depletion in tobacco, and it was brought to our attention by people like Leanne and Marina, that when vendors were coming in, they were coming in with names, signatures of people who wanted those vendors to have their quota at the beginning of the month. And what that was doing, it was draining the quota at the front end of the month, leaving a depletion near the end of the month. And we heard it from the tobacco shop itself. There were people coming in saying, "You don't have my brand. Where is, my, where's the products I want for me? They're not here." So it was brought to our attention, and more recently we had to amend the tobacco policy to, instead of front loading, people coming in and getting all of their quota at the beginning of the month, what we did instead, we changed it where the quota stays the same, but it's going to be dispersed on a weekly basis. So people are going to have to show up in person every week, and get their quota, for that particular week. So we're hoping that that change in the policy will sort of meet that situation where we won't get into a situation where people come to the tobacco store and there's no product there for them.
Well, you should have a guarantee that the product is there for the people in the community before you even begin to develop any policy on a weekly basis. The other concern I've heard from some of the vendors is that the quota that they have to buy by the 15th, at certain times they can't afford to buy that quota by the 15th, and it's been bought up by other vendors. Yeah. So there's a concern there. I think some of the quota is worth $44,000 or something along them lines, and to have that money within 2 weeks of the bud store opening on the first of the month when the quota comes in is near to impossible for some of the vendors. And the other thing is that they'll only be able to come in 4 days out of the month, or 4 days out of those first 2 weeks, to be able to pick up their cigarettes, because they only can pick them up on a Tuesday and a Thursday or something along those lines.
Yeah. From some of the question I got was related to people affording to purchase their quota, and some of the distribution around the distribution policy itself. The reason why we came out with a distribution policy, which didn't exist before, was we wanted to obviously maximize revenues. And the other thing we wanted to do was make the allocation fair right across the board with all the retailers. So we figured out a way to do that through the distribution policy, which meant we know what the quota is on a monthly basis. Our distribution policy, with getting half of the quota at the beginning of the month and the remainder at the middle of the month, and then I believe near the end of the month, maybe the third week, the surplus was to get rid of the quota on a very detailed and regular basis to maximize profits. That's the intent of that policy. And it's been working so far. Mind you, there's some things we need to work on, undoubtedly. But for the most part, I think generally it has been working.
Just to beg to differ a bit, it may be working to maximize the profit for the band, but the individual in the band is suffering because there isn't enough cigarettes for that person. So the first thing that should be made available is that to ensure that there is enough cigarettes for the band members to access at the beginning of the month and throughout the whole month, so that they have the access to their cigarettes and not having to travel to other communities or to off reserve to purchase their tobacco. And what you're saying is you want to maximize profit. That's fine. But the first priority, I believe, should be is that the band members have cigarettes so that they have available without having to endure the hardship.
Sure. I'll speak to that, because not all the allocation is given to vendors. as I understand it, 50% of our quota is there for band members. 55% of our quota is available for all our band members. So the vendors don't get all the quota. So we have the 55%, which seems to work, that people get what they are looking for. So, you know, it's not just a profit-driven exercise. There is a quota there for community members.
Then why are they running out of cigarettes then? Answer that question. If that's no, it's been a couple of months.
Well, I just told you, you know, if you heard me before.
That, you know, you have 55%, but still not guaranteeing that the people are getting their cigarettes. So let's get a guarantee that the people will get their cigarettes regardless of what amount you have set aside. If it's 55%, 60%, we need to ensure that people get their cigarettes on a monthly basis without any interruptions.
Well, okay, and I think for the most part, that is being met. And yes, we did talk about the situation within the last 2 months, but I don't think it's a general rule that people are not getting what they're looking for in terms of quota. You know, I mentioned the last 2 months, and we addressed that situation through a change in policy. And it seems to be working, and if it's not working, we're going to change the policy.
Okay, that's a good answer. I guess it's the best answer I'm going to get. In regards to the social issue, in regards to the leave to the Supreme Court of Canada and INAC trying to implement changes by April 1st and sending out letters and that stuff, I'm hoping that our band will continually to fight, that INAC in regards to trying to implement the social by April 1st. I think we need to take a much stronger road than a middle ground. We need to find a ground that's going to be suitable for Buckingham. The other thing is in regards to provincial rates. If it comes down to provincial rates, then INAC should be providing the services that are available to off-reserve band members that are not available right now through our current system. So the education and the extra training dollars, that should be also provided. If they're going to go to provincial rates, then they should be providing equal programs to the provincial programs that are available to our social assistance recipients. The other area I think that we need to look at is a sectorial self-government agreement with, in regards to social when it comes to talking, when you're talking with the chiefs on the chiefs level at the Assembly of Nova Scotia Chief. So a sectorial government agreement on social would be similar to one that we have on our education. As when we were having trouble with our education, now we've got control over education, and then maybe now we need to take control over our own social services program, and that's including Mi'kmaq Children and Family Services.
Okay.
Sort of a combined sectorial self-government agreement.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that has been subject to Assembly discussions as well. That we're just not putting all the eggs in the baskets of the appeal, waiting for the appeal from the Supreme Court. Discussions with our legal counsel, Naomi, indicate that there's a prospect of a further case based on discrimination due to the fact that there aren't comparable services available to people on reserve as opposed to people in the public, the general public. So that's an equality issue and subject to discrimination. The other point that you mentioned, which was also brought forward by the leadership, was engaging in what is called a sectorial self-government agreement. Currently, there's a table we have through the Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative where various discussions are taking place with the federal and provincial government on common issues. And one of those things, one of those areas that the leadership is intending to focus on is somewhat of a sectorial self-government agreement on social, and we're currently in the process of seeing if that's a possibility through that process.
And just to revisit a question that young lady asked earlier around people applying for Christmas loans, are they going to be available on the Christmas loans? Will they be available to apply for a Christmas loan this year?
Can they apply for their Christmas loans?
Yeah, because it was...
Yeah, typically there's a certain time of the year that we administer the Christmas loans. They're going to be available, as I understand, as we get to that particular time, and it'll sort of be business as usual as it relates to those loans.
Okay, those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, sorry. My name's Alicia Julian. I know you said you've cleared up the issue with tobacco and why we ran out and whatnot, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are really inquisitive on the fact that you were selling off reserve our quota, like by cases, and that it was visually seen by some individuals. So
Yeah.
I think they want clarification on that, not just that it's the vendor's fault.
Yeah.
I had discussion with one of the counselors, I'm not going to say,
Yeah.
and that was a verification that, yes, we're trying to maximize our revenue by selling it like that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time when we did have a surplus available, and, you know, you try to seek means to get a profit from that sort of surplus. But as I understand now, we're pretty well, it's pretty well, the flow has been going through, so hopefully it's worked itself through.
So this is our first month trial run to see if we actually run out?
Say that again?
So this is a trial run to see if we run out of tobacco?
I don't, well, the way it's looking right now,
I
don't
bought my cigarettes in Pictou Landing
yeah,
and in Monastery, as did a number of people in the community.
yeah. But one of the things that I want to mention is why we did run out. And why we did run out was various members were signing off their quota to various
I'm sorry,
retailers.
I don't believe on that 1 minute.
We're just giving you the facts of it anyway. And what happened was some people were coming in, even though when they signed off their quota, to get additional quota over and above that. So that was the existing reality of what happened. And we addressed it through changing the policy.
There I go again. Talk about rumors. And it has to come from the council. So what I'm going to speak about is that the policies that you had implemented for tobacco is excellent. If it wants to come down to the nitty-gritty about who gets what, vendors, people, whatever, this is a trial base, like you said several times. If it doesn't work, you're going to change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good thing. At least you put a policy in place. There's accountability, which is so important, that where our dollars and our profits is being made. So let's give it a chance and let's stop knocking it. Hey, if not, take all the tobacco from the vendors. It's the vendors that have privilege to sell our quota.
Okay.
Peach, the whole time you were speaking, I was over there shaking my head no.
Okay.
Because it's not always happening that way. A couple of weeks ago, an individual, I'll tell you who it is, it's my son, saw people loading cartons or boxes of merchandise from the tobacco shop. I'm not saying what was inside, but when he went over to ask him what's going on here, he said, we're picking up our cigarettes. We got a right to cigarettes too. And his response, only if you're a band member here. And he got no more response. They just said, oh, talk to your council, and continued loading their boxes and left. We don't know where that came from. That's the one we were questioning on. We're not questioning them so much as us getting them or how we get them, but when cigarettes move illegally from our community to another source of sales, that's not right.
Okay. I mean, we can look into the particular incident that you're talking about, but if we look at it from a general perspective in terms of how tobacco used to operate, You know, first, it was not fair. Not all retailers had an equal access to quota. Secondly, there were no policies and procedures in place. So there was this huge uncertainty as to who got what and when and how.
But that's what I was saying to you. I told you I have no problem with what you're doing with that, the distribution, the policy and all that. It's just this one incident.
Okay. We'll
You know what I
certainly-
mean?
We'll look into the incident, but one thing I want to stress, and Marina went through some of the systems and processes that both Krista and, you know, we instituted within tobacco, and everything's accounted for, folks. You know, like, it's accounted for. You went through, you just heard some of the systems and processes that John spoke
We're
about.
kind of odd that they were short for cigarettes from the middle of the month to the end of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the businesses had to close down from people coming in and saying, do you have any cigarettes? And that's all they want. White men come on our reserve, they don't want to buy chips or pop or milk. What they want is the tobacco or the cigarettes. So when they come in and you're knocking on your door, and you go to 15 times a day to the door, and all you can say is, I have no cigarettes. They didn't have them at the store.
I mean,
That's what bugged me.
yeah. I mean, the quota is distributed fairly. How quick they sell, when they run out, you know, is something beyond our control. All we can do is make the quota available, you know, through the month that takes into account community members, but also the needs of the vendors themselves. It's not going to be a perfect fix, and as we go along, we'll change things as we need to change things to account for some of these problems. And you know, we're gonna have a vendors meeting coming up as well within the near future to go through the policy.
How soon is that meeting going to happen?
How soon?
Yeah.
Hopefully by September. I'm hoping. You know that we had a vendors meeting before when we were developing the policy, and we're looking to have a vendors meeting hopefully in September to review the policy and consider any issues that exist.
Fair ball.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Any more questions? Sure.
I don't know if this was asked yet. I came late, but I want to know why, if you work for the band office, if you're inside the band office working and a new job comes up, they just get switched over. It ain't like a fair thing. If you could run one thing like shit and then go to another thing and it's run like shit, you know, why is that? Why do you guys let someone else like just get, oh, I want that job, and they get it because they're working the band office?
I think I know what you're getting at, but one of the things I would add is, you know, I really stand behind like all our staff. I think they're doing an excellent job, you know, certainly. So I just want to start out with that.
But obviously not if a lot of people are talking about cigarettes, how they're getting, couldn't be doing too much of a good job if that's one of the main things. Like, we're out of cigarettes for 3 weeks, so why is it you can just switch jobs? Oh, I want that job now. 2 months later, another job opens, you can get that? You can just switch job to job?
I think you're getting at the point of a lateral transfer, which was subject to discussion within council to accommodate a particular situation, okay, in tobacco, which I'm not going to get into. So there was a need for a void to be filled, and somebody stepped forward, and I am very grateful that they did step forward, because there was a void there that needed to be filled sooner than later. What you mentioned about the shortfall in availability of tobacco product, we're hoping that that will be addressed, and certainly if we hear that it's not addressed, you know, that community members aren't getting the product that they deserve, we will address it. And if it means cutting back the quota from retailers, then we'll do that.
But then how about switching job to job? If a job comes up and they don't like their job they're doing, they can just switch over?
There was a lateral transfer, and
Yeah, but amongst you guys, like, we're the voters, we're the people. You should give us a chance to apply for some of those jobs.
Yeah.
Like that?
I mean, I'm trying to think of situations beyond one situation where there was a lateral transfer. Do you know of others?
Oh, well, didn't a couple of them get transferred? They went from fishery to tobacco, from, what is it, you help student economic development, they get transferred to fisheries. Like, I don't want to mention names because I don't want to pinpoint them, but I asked them and they're like, oh, this is my last few weeks of this job. I got transferred to another job in this building.
Yeah, I think there is one particular situation you're referring to. There's two?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can find out what that second situation is, but it's not a big practice. I mean, when you look at the situation, for example, in tobacco, where we needed to fill that void, you know, what happened was a job opened up which people could apply for, right? So there wasn't a net loss in opportunity. You know, when that transfer took place, that job opened up and everybody...
And it went to another person that worked in the band office.
Yeah, because we had to make a decision. Okay. We did. I mean, and I'm not afraid of making that decision, you know.
About this lateral transfer business, like, I've been working in the band for a while. I didn't know that we were allowed to do it. Like, maybe I wanted to run the tobacco shop. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's...
Sure. Sure.
Just in regard to your lateral transfer issue, if it needed to be, there was a void that needed to be filled, then it should have been filled on a temporary basis and then put out for competition for other band members to apply. Okay. So, you know, you're saying you're justifying a lateral transfer and saying people can lateral...
without no interviews, and I think that's where this is coming from. But for the presence, for all chief and council, when a job comes up, be fair, do an interview. All is fair. And like my mom said, if it wasn't for an Indian people, we wouldn't have tobacco. So why don't you give the decision back to the people, what the people want to do with their tobacco. And it will help you guys along your journey of settling, because it's a big dispute about the tobacco.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you could clarify something for me. Actually, a couple matters. Now, I was told a couple of years ago that that road, paved up Beta, was that paid for?
No.
What about the signage on the Trans-Canadas? Were they paid for?
No.
Anything else that wasn't paid for? From the previous? Like.
Okay, this has nothing to do with tobacco or lateral transfers. Can somebody tell me your policy on dismissing a band worker, please? What do you guys, how do you go about firing somebody?
Okay, we have a personnel policy that is approved.
Yes.
I think it's dated back in 2011.
Yep.
And that sets out the procedure for disciplinary proceedings.
I believe it has something to say about you get 2 verbal warnings and a written letter from Chief and Counsel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, why have there been wrongful dismissals?
Why?
This isn't really a question to Chief and Counsel. It's more to the own source revenue people. I know of 2 people that were wrongfully dismissed, Noah Paul and Avery Gugu, not given a verbal warning, a letter, or anything. And I just want to know what's up with that.
Sorry, PJ.
That's okay.
I worked for the Strait Regional School Board for 14 years. There is a policy that you have to follow for a dismissal, and I'm going to tell you one thing. Your staff for the Buckingate First Nation, there's some of them that do not follow the policies, and if you do not properly follow them, you and Chief and Council have the right to dismiss them, because the band staff, at some times, you cannot go up there and have a pleasant conversation with certain people, and it's a sin because that's a public building.
Okay. Thank you for that. I mean, we're in the process of getting a chief. Some people call it a band manager. Some people call it a CEO or a chief administrative officer. But we're really looking forward to filling that position because it's a critical position, because it's the person that's sort of in between council and staff. So, you know, we're really looking forward to staffing that position. We were successful in getting funds from Aboriginal Affairs in that regard. So, you know, it should help address some of the issues that was mentioned just previously from Karen Ann and others as well. Kelsey?
I was wondering about this dog bylaw. Like, is
Yeah.
it happening?
Yeah.
What is being done about it?
Yes. We have a draft dog bylaw. It's in draft form. I'm essentially waiting for my vacation to finish that. When I get some time off, I've been working with another lawyer who just happens to be working on the same thing. So we're going to collaborate and look to get that finalized. What will happen is, once it's drafted, it's going to be posted on the website for public comment. And then after a certain period of time, after we get public comment, then we're going to be looking to implement that dog bylaw. We had met with a number of people. We met with the RCMP. We met with the local municipality, talking about how they address things. So there's a number of people that have collaborated on it. Thank you. When? I'm hoping to give a good look at it during our break, our vacation. Yeah, September should be. Starlene?
Hi, my name is Starlene Pictou. I just want to bring up one thing, because I did put a memo in to Chief and Council, I think a couple of months ago, on one of the things that they implemented through existing Chief and Council. They put a clause in there on a section that says, if you are a Buck-and-Keg employee for the Mi'kmaq Nation, you can run for elections, and we have 90-something employees that are under the Buck-and-Keg Mi'kmaq Nation that are employed by the band. And if you're allowed to run, but the thing is, you lose your salary. I haven't heard any response from Chief and Council, because to me, you have 30-something people that have to decide what's more important, my salary, or do I want to run for my community? There's some of us that's been in there for years and years and years employed, and we count on our salaries. So my question becomes, why do we have to lose our salary due to if we want to run in the elections? Because I'm pretty sure that Chief and Council do keep their honorarium, and it's not fair that we have to lose our salary, or either you guys must collect it before the new election comes. So I would like clarification on that, because I find like they say you can take it, you can't take it to human rights as a group, but I don't know if you can take it to individual, and I have talked with PJ about it, and I'd really like to see if we can amend that policy out of the out of the policy, because you can do that. Once you put things in policy, it's not like it has to stay there forever. Chief and council have the authority to remove things or amend it. And I think it's important because I always wanted to run for positions when elections do come, but I can't afford to lose my salary because I have to pay all my utilities. I got other bills that I got to pay. So 4 to 6 weeks to lose it is a lot of income for me. So that's just something I wanted to see if Chief and Council would kind of bring up in their next meeting or something, because I don't think it's fair because you take a big chunk out of 90 plus employees. I'm not saying they can't run, but they have to make the decision if they want to keep their income or not. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a clear point. That's a policy that had existed previously. And it's something that, you know, as council, we can consider and discuss. One of the things I'll add to that is that we're in the process of developing our own custom election code. There should be information on our website on what is involved within that process. And I really hope that people really consider participating within that process. We do need some good people to sit on a committee, like a governance committee, and talk about how we're going to administer, you know, elections within the future according to our own code, custom code. So that might be something we can consider within that as well. Sure. Okay, thank you.
Just a quick response to that policy in regards to having to give up your job take leave from your job to run for elections. It was due to a conflict of interest, so you have to make sure that your conflict of interest guidelines are followed when doing those type of policies. Other words, run you into trouble.
So what I get from that was conflict of interest, and in fact, I think they called it the PJ rule. Yeah. Dolly?
Talking about conflict of interest, I have run in previous elections in my job that I'm in today. I never campaigned while I worked. So when you talk about conflict of interest, people use it to their benefit. I don't have nothing to give away. I'm sorry, I only work at a daycare. I don't work up the band office, so I didn't have things to give away to convince people to vote for me. So.
You were talking about like a priority being administration building and a gym at some point?
Potentially.
I thought that at one time there was money for administration building.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah.
Do you guys know where it is?
What's that?
Do you know where it is?
It sort of gets sucked up within a general pot, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's my second? I'll think about it. If I do, I'll come back up.
Okay, sure. You know, this is all good stuff, you guys. This is why we're here, to take the tough questions.
Just one more question, not to pinpoint anyone, but the communication jobs, there's 2 hires by name hire. There was no, the people didn't know. They, even like, not to get them in trouble, they're doing a great job, but they were name hired, they were hired on the spot. No one, even people in the band office, just like, oh, surprised they got hired. Like, they didn't know the job was up or anything. How can that be? Like, can I have a job? I'd love to work at home.
Well, it's good.
The communications positions, there's 2. They're trainee positions. When we first secured the funding through the help desk, there was job postings for it. We had 3 names that came forward, We maintained those names. One of them was Ben Lafford in Savannah. We just carried them over from year to year instead of reposting because it's just a continuance of training. So that's why you didn't see further job postings on that. Pardon me?
You could repost it.
But there's no sense to it because it's a training initiative. So it just carries on.
Yes, I bet you some of these people here would love to have maybe known about the job.
Okay, then maybe what would be a possibility is allow at least the trainees a couple of years to train in full, where they hopefully get the prospect of a job position somewhere else, but at least give them that enough time to secure enough training and then repost for new trainees. I mean, it's new, it's only been a couple of years, so yeah, I mean, that's exactly why. I hope that answers
You girls are doing a good job.
If I can make a comment here, I'm really thankful everyone showed up, and I love band meetings. They're healthy. We're able to engage, whether it's happily or not. But I think at the end of the day, the information is out there. We've got really good community engagement. But I just wanted to highlight some of the challenges of this council since we got in. The very first day we started our council, first council meeting, just to give you an idea of some of these challenges, is we were faced with a letter from our Scotia Bank. This letter stated that they did not want anything to do with the band, that the management of the money was in such disarray that they didn't want to do business with us. So over this past couple of years, you know, I'm not shy to say it's been a real challenge, but at the same time, I'm very delighted to hear that we've come a long way. I mean, sure, we've made mistakes, and we're not going to stop. We're going to make mistakes. But at least at the end of the day, you've witnessed a healthy audit. I can only see things becoming more improved, and the more community engagement we have, we're hearing it from you. So I think we're going to be reactive and proactive. So thank you all.
I'll just, because it seems like we're starting to wind up here. There's another question, okay. Annika, yeah.
I have a couple. I know you stopped doing funding for sports, but is there any future in it? I have a two-income family, and it's hard to keep my kids in sports and active, and I just think it's really important for our kids to be in sports and organized events or whatever, and I'm just wondering if that's going to happen again, or, you know, if there was a cap on it or something to make it manageable. And I'm not even as worried for me as I am for people that don't have, you know, a job or an income. They're busy raising their kids. I get it. It's just, it's hard for me. So I can't imagine for somebody that's unemployed and trying to get on their feet to take care of the kids the way that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering when, if that'll happen again, or when, or what that would look like, or when we would know what that would look like.
Did somebody catch that? Did you catch that?
No.
Just one more time, Annika, sorry.
Sports, like getting it for the registration or things like that.
Yeah. There was the practice whereby we would contribute, you know, half to expenditures for sports-related activities, and eventually that would have to be capped, you know, because there's only so much we could have within in terms of an allocation. The overall preference that I would like to see us go as a community is A, develop a committee, a sport and recreation committee, so we can establish a budget. You know, and hopefully the committee can allocate, you know, that budget to whatever the priorities are within the community. That's my preference there, because there has to be a method to the allocation of funding and a rationale as to who gets what and why. We've been struggling to staff some key positions, and there is a posting that's going out related to something along the lines of sport and recreation. So hopefully that will be staffed as soon as possible, so we can sort of get some real concrete action going, as it relates to youth and sport activities. A youth group would be another incredible thing to have within the community. I do realize there was one previously, and I think it's really important to really have a youth group within the community. So, if there's youth that are looking forward to stepping forward, I would certainly, look forward to that.
And everybody's talking about elections, so I was wondering, because I know you guys stopped working on new stuff at some point. Do you have like a date or an idea when people can bring forth new issues that could be dealt with, just for general issues, or?
A date for?
Like you know how you guys stop doing new business when it gets close to election? Is there a time when you guys stop doing new business, or like a deadline to say, hey, I need this dealt with before we stop dealing with things? Or I have no idea. That's what someone else was asking.
The sound is sort of...
I think it's me. I have a cold.
Sorry about that. When is the last day of business before elections?
Yeah, no, I mean like for new business. I know sometimes you guys stop, I don't know.
I mean, it'll have to function right through elections. The way it's been in the past is the existing leadership will operate for a certain period after the election, just to maintain the house sort of thing. So, but there will. I'm just thinking it might have been a couple weeks. I'm looking at Gerard there. I mean, by which there was a period to allow for the transition to take place. But that's generally how it'll operate.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long was that anyway?
Once the nominations were done, only essential services were done. Not all the staff was like just peered down to the essential services, and no new requests would be dealt with during the time from the nominations until the elections. Then after the elections, whatever the date that the new council came in, the old council would still continue to maintain business.
Okay, good stuff. I just want to, because I realize our time is going, but is there a question? Sure. I'm glad with all these questions.
I just kind of want to ask why some of the methods for some of the summer employment was different than others. Because I know for a fact that I didn't get an interview, at all. I was called in, on the last day of applications, your mom told you that you need to be here to sign up for a summer job.
Okay, so you were wondering about the interview process for summer jobs, kind of thing?
Not just that, and and training. Last year for the summer camp, I got trained to deal with children in a proper way, or in a way that wouldn't create any power struggles or anything like that. And I'm just kind of wondering why that wasn't administered this year. Because I know from being friends with all these people and working with everybody else that there's a lot of things going wrong. And it really needs to be dealt with. Because it's going to go on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, there's certainly a need to address issues, and things are not perfect. I'll be the first one to say that. But at the same time, I really want to take this opportunity to recognize the efforts of all staff. I get to see what they do on a day-to-day basis, and there is a lot of people that have to get up in the morning to make this community work, so I really want to sort of mention that. The other thing that I want to give some recognition to is the people who do work in own source revenue. Without your work, without your involvement, without your time, without your effort, the situation of programs and services within our community would be not good. So I truly appreciate that. Council truly appreciates that as well. The whole nature of having these discussions, these public discussions, live video streamed, is to be accountable, to be, out there within the community, subject to all your questions and all your feedback and all your comments. And, all we can do as a council is, learn from that and really try to make improvements in order to improve things as we move forward together. So I'll entertain one more question and then we're going to sum up.
Okay, I was wondering about your guys' policies, like your work policies, your business policies. I know for a fact that there is a confidentiality policy.
Yeah.
And it gets broken too much times.
There-
I'm sorry. When you give out the policies, do you make sure that the people read it and understand it?
There is a need for an orientation with staff that when they come on that they're aware of our policies. I'm looking at communications. We're in the process of putting specific policies on our website to make it available to the public as well. I know within council is aware of those policies and have read them as well. Okay, thank you very much. At this stage, how are we going to do this? Are we going to have the closing prayer and then the draws? Okay, John, if I can ask for, thank you guys, thank you all so much.
Dan Delwisit, Wegosit Niska, Mewchit Niska, Mahwajon Niska. Walain Mali Sabeudi, Lojubenal, Chisama Degoyask, Abiji Pajijuanig, Awaleg Dan Tlamila Wejman it Sesus. Pejuli Sabew in Mali, Wegosin Westerwalk, Nige Jasid Melstemin, Ajale Exal, Well, take Albis, Wegiadig, Asid Melstemin. Dan Delwisit, Wegosit Niska, Mewchit Niska, Mahwajon Niska.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to really acknowledge and appreciate somebody that has been doing some incredible things within our community. Robin, who has, worked with our community members, who has initiated this amazing little oyster project. And I just want to take this opportunity to offer him a small token of appreciation for his efforts here. Okay, so we got a bunch of prizes here. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the people